What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. Minnesota notes, couple things. The big thing is they need to change their defensive approach. I don't think the answer is zone. I don't think the answer is ball pressure. I don't think the answer is double teaming. I think the answer is you play defense the way Denver did. You have Jaden McDaniels sit in a passive defensive stance where he's meeting Shai closer to the elbows. We saw that when Jaden kind of gives space, he can close ground and get a great contest on a Shai pull-up three. Instead of pressuring Shai, he needs to be playing off, sitting back, making Shai drive into him, where he has more time to anticipate the driving angle and to beat him to spots, and it's more likely to bait Shai into pull-up jump shots. Then, I do think they need to be using the Denver approach of gapping really hard, getting into the point where you've got four bodies in the paint consistently, and dare Shai and these guys to beat you in the half court as passers. When you double team Shai out at half court, it creates a 4-on-3 in a massive area of space. There's so much space to work with there. You guys have seen the Golden State Warriors annihilate teams for a decade using those 4-on-3s with that kind of space. When you double team, quote unquote, Shai in the form of more like 3-4 bodies in the paint consistently, that is a situation that creates the advantage for Oklahoma City on the perimeter. Make Shai relentlessly hunt kick-out reads. Make these dudes knock down contested jump shots. Now, one of the things is I did think it was defensible, even though I do think this series was inevitably careening towards a defensive shift, towards more what I'm talking about. I did think that it was defensible to try it again tonight. It was defensible because theoretically you kept game one close and you just missed a ton of kick-out threes. So in theory, you go into game two, you stick with your base defensive game plan, guys shoot better, and you have a chance to go back home with a 1-1 series, and maybe you can hold that card in your back pocket. But now through two games, it's abundantly clear that these guys aren't going to be able to knock down enough of those kickouts in the corner against those contests. And so now it's at the point where you have to consider changing your defensive approach. You've got to get more stops than you've been getting. Oklahoma City, since the first half of game one, has consistently scored at high volume. 70 points in the second half of game one, 58 points in the first half of game two, 60 points in the second half of game two. They are scoring on you consistently for a game and a half now. You have to change that scheme. I also think it's defensible in the sense that it's hard to win on the road. And so throwing that, like game three is a must win now. You got to get that one. So I like the idea of going into game three and shifting your scheme in that game where you're also getting the benefit of role players being more comfortable, feeding off of the crowd, potentially Oklahoma City's role players getting less comfortable. That's where I think that could, especially with the scheme change, that could tilt things more heavily towards Minnesota. And so I think in game three, there needs to be way less ball pressure, way more of a contain and compact the paint, force Shai to beat you with the pass, force Oklahoma City to beat you from the perimeter instead of letting them knife you to pieces in the middle of the lane like they have through the first two games. Another 58 points in the paint tonight for Oklahoma City. A couple other things. I talked about in game one how I would potentially consider leaning into Rudy Gobert more. No more of that. I thought Rudy was bad tonight. I thought he was bad on defense, and I thought he was nightmarishly bad on offense. He got 30 minutes tonight. I didn't think he was effective at any point. So I'm kind of over the Rudy Gobert experience in this series. The complete inability to finish anything in the pocket, and then on defense, like him not contesting Isaiah Hartenstein's floater down low, even though we got clear at film from the Denver series that's how you bother him. Okay, you're on a switch against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or handling Shai in a drop coverage and you're just fouling him every time. He's not providing any real resistance. I don't see the Rudy value in this series anymore. So we talked about that as being a potential option to explore in game one or after game one. You explored it more tonight. No more need to explore that territory. I don't think this is a series where Rudy can be very effective. Julius Randle has to change his approach. I thought he tried to force his way through a slump today. We talked a lot about this example in the last few weeks in our playback sessions, but the idea of like, how do you get yourself out of a slump when the shots aren't falling? There's option one, which is take every shot you can get your eyes on. We saw a lot of that with like Dante DiVincenzo in game one, for example. And in that sort of situation, you're most likely just going to compound the problem because you're probably going to be taking a bunch of iffy shots that are low percentage under any circumstances, especially when you're not in a good rhythm. The second method is find ways to generate easy shots and derive confidence from the dirty work. Meaning, defend your ass off, rebound your ass off, control everything that's in your control, which will help boost your confidence to where you feel better on the offensive end. And then on the offensive end, fight for easy looks, transition pushes, offensive rebound crashes, anything with the real advantage, whether it's a post mismatch or it's a semi-transition opportunity where you can drop your shoulder. There's a very brief stretch in the third quarter where Julius really started to force the issue physically. He got like a deep transition seal for a bucket, another like deep post up, and then a couple of like semi-transition pushes. And I'm like, hey, like this is better. But there was a huge stretch of the game where he was already 1 for 5, 1 for 6, and he's just taking every semi-contested three he can get his hands on. And like, that's just not going to get you out of that sort of slump. Again, this is where I'll move to the last adjustment here. Ant and Julius have to be looking to be aggressive with an advantage, not at the beginning of the possession. At the beginning of the possession, they're attacking a loaded up Oklahoma City defense that is praying to God that they will do something stupid like try to score through all of them in the paint. The on-ball guy, whether it's Julius or it's Ant or it's one of the role players, needs to be looking. And by the way, one of the things they're doing with the other role players is they're not overreacting as much on those pushes. Or anything in the middle of the floor. But if Julius and Ant, whether it's through the post or it's through a pick and roll or an ISO or whatever it is, get the ball to the middle, get it sprayed out. From there, drive and kick spacing. Get out of the middle of the floor somewhere where you can get back in a position to catch. That guy will either catch and shoot and make a wide open catch and shoot three, or against a closeout will drive. And now you have an opportunity to attack when the defense is shifted and sprinting at you. That is where Ant and Julius can look to be aggressive and score. This is not an on-ball scoring series for Ant and Julius. It is an on-ball playmaking and off-ball scoring series for Ant and Julius. They have to make that adjustment or they are never going to crack OKC out of their base scheme.